That's a pretty powerful point Jesus makes in today's gospel, that the worldly take much more initiative than the otherworldly in dealing with their own kind. Okay? What we need to do is to work as hard on our spiritual life as we do on our physical life. Work as hard at getting holy as we work at getting financially secure. How do you do that? And there's the problem. What does it mean to you? Suppose you sit there and you agree with me and say, yeah, that's right, I should work harder on my spiritual life. I will, what? Pray more? Go to church more? Be a better person? Be a good little boy or girl? Is that what it means? And see, one of the things that has happened to us is that they made holiness very similar to a bank account. Pray. Why? So you get grace. Go to church. Why? So you get grace. Our problem with that is we don't get a monthly bank statement saying you got this much grace and the interest on that is this much. I guess that would be nice, but that's to make holiness a commodity. And we're dealing with something spiritual here. Some people even take it to the extreme. St. Nicholas of Switzerland, not the St. Nicholas that we celebrate in December. St. Nicholas of Switzerland fathered 19 children. And then he heard the call of God to holiness and went away to be a hermit, leaving his wife with the 19 children. And we call him the saint. What a racket, huh? Maybe God did call him to be a hermit. I don't know. But I don't want any wife calling me saying, nice going, Father. My husband walked out on me to go be a hermit because you said be holy. No. That's not what this is all about. We're not called out of the world. We're called to be in the world. And yet we have to take care of our spirit because that's what counts. So let's take a look at what might spiritual growth entail. Well, first of all, let's get an idea of where we're going. What kind of person do you admire? What kind of person seems to you to be the complete person? Is it simply wealth? God knows, I think we all know some pretty ugly people that got money. And we may like to have their money, but we sure wouldn't want to live life like they do. No. Let's see. The person we would like to be holds grudges or is forgiving? I think that's pretty obvious. The person we would like to be is understanding or flies off the handle at every little thing that goes wrong? I think that's pretty obvious. The person that we admire is free or totally manipulated and controlled, a real slave. There's where we get right down to it. What is the craving of each and every one of us is a craving to be free. What did Jesus say? I came to bear witness to the truth, a truth that will make you free. We're looking for freedom. How about if we set our sights on becoming more free? That's spiritual growth, folks. To leave behind everything that ties us down, to leave behind all of the excess baggage that we carry with us in life, and to be truly free people. And the neat thing about this is nobody can stand in the way of that. Nobody. If I decide that I'm going to be free, nobody can stop me from being free. You can chain me up, you can put me in prison, and I will still be free. And if sitting in a jail cell, I think I need to be out of that jail cell to be free, I never will be. because freedom has to do with how we see life. Freedom has to do with our attitude. Freedom has to do with what chains us down, and physical chains cannot chain our spirit. Cannot. But yet we continue to set all our goals on things that somebody else can get in the way of. If I decide I want to be President of the United States, somebody can stand in the way of that. Although with my diplomatic personality, I don't know why anybody ever would want to stand in the way of that. But who knows, there might be some malcontents who would. Or if I decide I want to be a professional baseball player, there's something that stands in the way of that. No talent. They don't make you a baseball player because you want to be. You got to have talent. I don't have it. Sax, who ever heard of a 52-year-old rookie in the major leagues? I haven't. But nobody can stand in the way of my being free. There's a great goal to let behind all of the junk that I carry with me, all of the grudges, all of the anger. How do we do that? Well, I'll tell you, my own experience, it's been affected by a whole lot of people. One was my cousin, a master carpenter for some 40 years, who could honestly say, I have never worked with an apprentice from whom I didn't learn something. Think about that. A master carpenter who learned something from every apprentice he ever worked with. There's a step toward being free. From a priest who said, why don't you take another look at your vocabulary and see all of the things that come along with these words you use. A word like piety. And I realized that to me, piety meant chapel veils and rosary beads and candles and statues. That's not what piety means. Piety means faithfulness. Wow. I began to realize that half of my vocabulary in regard to God had no meaning. And another big part of it had the wrong meaning. Take a look at, what does this mean? What are we doing here? Appeasing God? I think not. How about here, we are a group of pilgrims, a bunch of sinners who really don't have foggiest idea what this is all about, but then nobody else does either. And we're all in this boat together, fumbling and stumbling along, stepping on each other's toes. You know, there's a lot to be said for having company when you're in that boat. And we're all in that boat together. That's what we're here to do, celebrate that fact that in spite of that, no, because of that, we're loved. And then it really came down. The big turning point in my life when I stopped being threatened by every new idea that came down the pike. Because you see, what I finally realized is if I'm doing this and somebody would say, let's do this, what I was feeling is, what are you saying, what I'm doing is wrong? And you may not understand this, but I like to think I'm right. I have a need to be right. Now, I know most of you can't plug into that, but if you say, how about this? I say, why? What's wrong with what I'm doing? How about this? You saying what I'm doing is wrong? No. I'm saying, how about this? How about this is maybe better, maybe just different. There's nothing wrong with that. How about this? No threat, no accusation there. How about this? Once I stop being threatened by new ideas, the road to freedom becomes much more simple, because then you see, I don't sit where I am saying, and I'm going to keep being right here and I want this to make me free. Has it worked so far? No, but I keep praying that it will. Well, if it hasn't worked so far, it probably isn't going to work in the future either. And I finally came to grips with there's nothing wrong with being happy. There's nothing wrong with making a fool out of yourself. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. That's okay. Wow. What a freeing experience. Where are we going? Well, we're meant to be free. We're meant to be one. How are we going to get there? Try facing what is really threatening to you. There's nothing really threatening to you. Elsewhere, Jesus says, don't fear those who can hurt the body. Fear those who can destroy the spirit. Who can destroy your spirit? The devil? No. You. You're the only one that can destroy your spirit. Maybe be afraid of your own fear. Nothing else. Take a look. How much do you spend on planning the rest of your life, and how much do you spend on your spirit? Wow. I think we need to spend more time on our spirit. Think about it. This is not a matter of let's get more grace, but let's get more free. Let's get more understanding. Let's get more forgiving. Now we're working on the spiritual things that last into eternity.
The gospel for today is Matthew 18, verses 1 to 14.
Unless you become like little children, you won't find the kingdom. Jesus repeats that quite frequently throughout the course of his teaching. What does that mean to you? To become like a little child. Well, to a lot of people it seems to mean be childish. Because God knows we've got enough childish people running around these days. I don't think that's what he meant. Maybe we need to watch kids a little more closely. Not to teach them, but to learn from them what it means. A healthy child has a great amount of curiosity. They're always exploring. They're always looking to learn something new. That's what it means to be like a little child. The healthy child can get in the meanest fight and 2 minutes later forget that it ever happened. Watch kids fight. You say, well, if you're going to behave like that, let's go home. No, we're having fun. We're not going home. Then we grow up and we get in a fight and we smile and say, oh, I'm sorry, and walk away and hold a grudge for 10 years. To be able to see the world, to see the beauty of God's creation, and to live the moment. And maybe there's the key. Who hasn't had that experience? How long till we get there? Another hour. Is it an hour yet? No. Well, how long? 59 minutes. Is it 59 minutes yet? No concept of time. All I got is now. Wow. If we learn to live that. When theologians talk about eternity, they talk about it as being the eternal now. There is no time. No before, no after, just now. Some of us are going to be terribly lost if we don't have before and after to deal with, because we've never practiced dealing with now. We look at all the hurts from the past. We look at all the fears in the future, and we never live now. Unless you become like little children, you're not going to find the kingdom. A healthy curiosity about the beauty in nature, about the beauty in the human beings about us, a willingness to let go of hurts, the ability to live now, essential to finding the kingdom. Observe yourself. When you start to get upset, down, see if you're not forgetting to live now. And think on this. There is no moment in life that is intolerable. Nobody in this room has ever had an intolerable moment, a moment through which they did not survive. Obviously, we're all here. The only intolerable moment is the one in the future that I'm trying to handle now. Can't handle the future now. All I can handle is now.
The gospel for today is Matthew 18, verses 15 to 20.
It's amazing how we pick and choose the parts of Scripture that we like to hear. Most people I know like to hear the thought that whatever we ask for, we'll get. A lot of religion is based on that. Do we like to hear where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in their midst? Isn't it amazing how as groups we criticize groups, we tear apart groups, those people, that clique? Jesus is in their midst. And isn't it interesting how we can gather together for nothing but sinful purposes? Breed anger, talk about one another, tear reputations apart. Maybe if we were a little bit more into there am I in their midst, really a little more into the presence of God. I wonder if we'd do that. We're used to seeing the priest come down the middle aisle at the start of Mass and either bow or genuflect. Would you be shocked if I turned and genuflected toward you? And yet the presence of God is just as real in you as it is in the tabernacle. Same God, one sacramental presence, one spiritual presence, but we've got so taken with the sacramental presence that we don't give much emphasis to the spiritual presence. God becomes unreal. Where's God in the tabernacle? We know where he is. No, he's here. If the Blessed Sacrament were not here, if we were having no Mass this morning, just as surely God is here because here we are. Think about it. Maybe the problem is none of us here would have an X put on our heads. In Ezekiel we read that he tells one to go through and Mark with an X those who don't buy into the abominations that are going on. In our day, I think that abomination that he would be talking about would be materialism, consumerism. It would be totally egocentricity. Everything must revolve around me. How many of us would have an X marked on our head as people who just totally disagree with what's going on today? I think the two go hand in hand. The more we buy out of the world, the more we become aware of the presence of God. And the more we become aware of the presence of God, the more we buy out of the world. Watch. How taken are you with materialism, with what you have, with your reputation, with what people think of you? That's not what it's all about. Understanding that the dream, the prayer of Jesus is what church is all about, that they all may be one. That they all may be one as you, Father, are in me and I in them. But he is in us. We are one. Maybe we need to focus a little more on living that reality.
The gospel for today is Matthew 18, verse 21, and Matthew 19, verse 1.
When we talk about God as Jesus talks about him here, if all we think of is a being that is above the clouds someplace, this God comes off pretty petty. Unless you forgive, God won't forgive. It's like, you forgive first, then I'll forgive you. Maybe the challenge is to reevaluate what we think of God. You see, I don't believe that there's a being above the clouds who's got a scorecard in his hand and says, okay, Rich forgave one time, I'll forgive one time. No, you see, I think that God is what life is all about. And when I refuse to forgive, it's not a being outside of me that's punishing me. It is me punishing me. I create the world in which I live. When I choose to be unforgiving, I live in an unforgiving world. When I choose to hold a grudge, I live in a grudge-filled world. On the other hand, when I choose to give peace, I live in a peace-filled world. When I choose to give trust, I live in a trust-filled world. This is so alien to us. Whatever I give to me. I create the world in which I live. We grew up in an age where we were taught to blame everything and everybody, and when you couldn't find anybody else to blame, it was either God's will or the devil made me do it. I think the real challenge of Christianity is to take control of our own lives. Insofar as life can be in our control, that's what we are called to do. And what's the result if we don't? A God who punishes us? No. Nobody has to punish us. We punish ourselves. But it has become so normal to us. Until you put it into words. I find this a lot about life. When you put it into words, what's really going on, it comes off ridiculous. So, somebody hurts me, I get mad, I hold a grudge. Put that into words. If you hurt me, I will punish you by ruining my life. That's crazy, but that's what we do. When I get angry, when I hold a grudge, when I bear that resentment, whose life am I ruining? Mine. And yet the behavior's so normal. You hurt me, I'm angry, I hold a grudge. Repeat that to yourself a couple times throughout the day. You did not behave the way I want you to, so I'm going to punish you. I'm going to ruin my life. Jesus calls us to be whole, healthy human beings. We were created in the image of God, free and with the ability to love. Insofar as we sell that short, insofar as we don't work on loving and being free, we're less than we can be. Now, if we choose to blame God or the devil for punishing us for that, we'll never be free and we'll never be loving. You've got it in you. Go for it.
The reading for today is Matthew 19, verses 3 to 12.
In today's gospel, we get a little view of something that's rather alien to us, and I suggest to you that it has seriously affected how we take the gospel. The way we were taught, if Jesus said something, if God said something, that was the rule. It applied to everybody under all circumstances. What Jesus is saying is that here's a teaching, for example, that let him who can take it, take it. It doesn't say that, and if you can't live by this, you're going to go to hell. If you can't live by this, you're some sort of bad person. Some it is given, some it isn't. To me, what this says is that it is absolutely imperative that each of us comes to understand our own relationship with God, what it is to which we have been called, what our covenant with God is. Yes, there's the overall covenant, but what does God expect of you? What is it that you have to be to live out your relationship with God? We hear a lot of hue and cry about how immoral our society is. I don't think we're immoral. I think we have become amoral, that we simply do not reflect on our own relationship with God, because that's what morality is. Morality is living out your relationship with God as you know God. What we've done is to accept a kind of an ethic, whatever the traffic will allow. Most of you here are old enough to remember the 1958, I guess. Anyway, when Eisenhower and Rockefeller were battling for the Republican convention, or at the Republican convention. Do you remember one of the things that tipped it Eisenhower's way? Rockefeller was divorced. We will never have a divorced man as President of the United States, we said some 35 years ago. Wow. You see, if we're going to float with what society says is okay, and if our moral ethic is going to be what society says is right and wrong, we have no place to place our feet. The only enduring thing is our relationship with God. What God wants of me is different from what God wants of you. What does God want of you?
This is the end of side 1.